Most jazz guitarists learn standards in a very unproductive way. In this video, I'm going to show you the wrong way to practice a jazz standard and the right, productive, and very focused way to practice a jazz standard. One wrong way to practice jazz standards is just to look up the chords and follow a chart to the tune. So, one reason this is bad is because, when you're playing on a bandstand, it's definitely more helpful to have the tune memorized and in your heart rather than always having to follow it. Because you don't want to pull out a chart for every single tune you learn. You want to learn it in a way where you have it fully in you without the need for a chart. You're never going to learn a jazz standard thoroughly if you just look at a chord chart for it. What I think is the proper, right way to learn a jazz standard in this context is to try and learn the tune by ear. And then once you have all the chords down and you have them right, you put the chart away and practice with a metronome playing the chords to the tune. And that way it forces you to really know the changes without the help of a chart. So overall, this first tip is to really disregard the chart. Only look at the chart if you need confirmation that your transcription of it was correct. We need to learn standards at their core, and the way to learn them at their core is to not even need a chart, to have the changes so ingrained within you and in your ear that you can play them automatically. Another wrong way jazz guitarists practice standards is that they don't listen to a wide variety of recordings for the same song. I can't stress the value of listening to many different recordings of the same standard. What I recommend is listening to, a couple vocal versions of a standard and a couple instrumental versions. Because obviously the instrumental versions are going to differ from the vocal versions. It's important just to listen to the vocal versions for the melody, and it's also important to listen to instrumental versions to check out any variations on the chords that the recording does. It's also useful to check out how different players interpret a standard, because there's so many different ways to play a standard, and each recording is going to be wildly different from the last, and it's important to just get this very encompassing view of a single standard, because then you'll learn it better. In the end though, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's that you must use your ear to learn a standard. That's how the players did it back in the day when they didn't have, YouTube, Spotify, and readily available charts and transcriptions to learn a tune. I think we must work on our ears, because if you're in a situation playing with people, you must use your ears to understand what's going on in the context of playing. And sometimes you're going to have to learn a tune by ear on the fly. And if you haven't worked on your ear, you're not going to be able to do that very well. You develop a better connection to the standard itself if you learn it on your own instead of with a chart, because a chart is not music. Music is music. So play it on your own, really learn the changes in and out, transpose it to different keys so that you're not relying on, the same shapes over and over again. And if you transpose it to other keys, it forces you to actually have a better understanding of that standard. And something I recommend in this regard is to learn a standard numerically. And what that means is if you have, say for example, Autumn Leaves, you have the 2, the 5, the 1, the 4, then you have the, in a new key, in the key of G minor, you have 2, 5, and then 1. So it's very important to map out a standard numerically. So if you play in a new key, you don't have to transpose each chord individually. You can think of it in a broader key numerically. Another wrong way jazz guitarists learn standards is they disregard the melody and they only play the chords, or they only practice soloing over the tune. The melody is such an important part of the song. The melody reveals important parts of the harmony that you need to consider, and the melody is just the staple of the tune. And I think it's important to learn the melody to every standard you learn, because yes, as a jazz guitarist, most of the time you will be comping for the melody, but if you really want to be able to, be your own, band leader or play in a trio or something with bass and drums or any context, you really need to learn the melody because you never know when the melody is going to be thrust upon you. You never know when you're going to have to be the one to play the head. So definitely learn the head. It helps you understand the tune better, and it also helps you play with other people better. So overall, this tip, don't just practice comping and soloing over the tune. Practice the melody. Learn it very well. Learn it from many sources so you actually know what the melody is. Because oftentimes when you learn a standard, it's very hard to actually learn the true melody to it. There's so many different recordings with different variations on the melody, and what I suggest for this is if you're learning a jazz standard, definitely check out an early vocal version of it where the melody isn't very embellished. And usually for this, you can check out Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, Billie Holiday, Chet Baker. That's a good list of vocalists you can check out where most of the time the melody is going to be pretty straightforward. A right way to practice a standard is also practicing slowly and with intention. So, it would look like pulling up a recording of the tune without a chart, piece of paper in front of you, piece of sheet music, and listening to the tune very, very intently and really trying to think about the changes. And for me, to learn a tune, I always listen to the bass line. So bass line comes first, then second, chord quality. And it is very hard to learn a standard by ear, but the more you do it, the better you get at it, the more you hear the same kind of chord changes and same harmony happening within the same standards. What could be another way of intentionally practicing is putting the metronome on tune 4 and comping the same rhythm throughout the entire tune. So for example, Autumn Leaves, take a metronome, tune 4, let's say we're at 60 BPM, 2, 3, 4, and just comping through with some simple voicings, like the 3rd and 7th, Charleston rhythm. And basically, don't look at the chart and play the entire tune like that. Just metronome on tune 4, pick one rhythm, and play the chords throughout the entire tune. And if you notice there's a part that's, getting you mixed up, or you don't know the chords quite as well as you think, practice the part you're messing up. That's another way of practicing intentionally, is really recognizing what part is messing you up and working on that exclusively to get it better. Thank you for watching today's video. If you want to see more jazz guitar related content, please hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more videos coming up. Thank you.